The success of the Ukrainian counteroffensive in Sumy Oblast, where the defense forces drove the Russians out of several villages over the summer, deprives Russia of some of its bargaining chips in any hypothetical peace negotiations, according to the New York Times. In a lengthy article, the publication tells the story of the liberation of the village of Kindratovka, located less than 20 kilometers north of Sumy. Modest achievements that matter greatly to Kiev. The successful Ukrainian counterattack in the Sumy region, bordering Russia, is a rare turnaround on a battlefield dominated by Moscow's forces, the publication states. American journalists note that amid the constant advance of the Russian army, which seizes hundreds of square kilometers of Ukrainian territory every month, the recapture of even small areas of the Sumy region helps Ukraine counter Moscow's narrative of Kyiv's inability to stop the Russian offensive. Specifically in the Sumy region, the Russian offensive has failed so badly that the Russian command has finally given up on it and transferred its main forces from there to the Donbas. However, another aspect is even more important. As the New York Times notes, Moscow previously proposed exchanging the captured parts of Sumy Oblast for the rest of Donbas territory as part of a peace agreement. US President Donald Trump appears to have supported this idea, despite the obvious disproportionate nature of such an exchange. However, Ukraine's achievements near Sumy weaken Russia's negotiating position. Why should we exchange territories if we can get them back? Explains Maxim Skripchenko, president of the Kyiv-based Center for Transatlantic Dialogue. At the same time, the strategic situation for the defense forces remains extremely dire. The NYT writes, citing the aggressor's significant advantage in infantry numbers and firepower. Not only Russian drones, but also Russian guided bombs pose a problem for Ukrainian forces, including in the Sumy region. Besides creating real problems for the Ukrainian military, Russia's tactic of bombing every inch of land leads to the complete destruction of the settlements being fought over. The aforementioned village of Kindratovka was reduced to rubble after its liberation. Sumy resident Natalia Biletchenko, interviewed by the authors of this publication, recalled how a colleague rejoiced at the liberation of Kindratovka, her home village. However, this joy was overshadowed by the fact that her home was destroyed. Of course, she was happy, but at the same time she was homeless, without anything, the woman said.
The UK, Australia and Canada formally recognized a Palestinian state on Sunday, prompting an angry response from Israel, which ruled out the prospect. According to Associated Press, the coordinated initiative from the three Commonwealth nations and longtime allies reflects growing outrage at Israel's conduct of the war in Gaza and the steps taken by the Israeli government to thwart efforts to create a Palestinian state, including by the continued expansion of settlements in the West Bank. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who has faced pressure to take a harder line on Israel within his own governing Labour Party over the deteriorating situation in Gaza, said the UK's move is intended to revive the hope of peace for the Palestinians and Israelis. He insisted it wasn't a reward for Hamas, which was behind the attack on October 7, 2023, in which the militants killed some 1,200 people and abducted 251 others. The moves by the three countries prompted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to say that the establishment of a Palestinian state will not happen, while Hamas urged the international community to isolate Israel.
Several countries led by Britain have granted diplomatic recognition to a Palestinian state. This move by the UK, along with Canada, Australia, and others, reflects growing unhappiness and anger over Israel's ongoing military offensive in the Gaza Strip. It also reflects the widespread displeasure over Israel's policies in the occupied West Bank. That includes stepped up and increased settlement instruction. Those settlements, of course, are aimed at preventing and undermining the establishment of a future Palestinian state as part of a two-state solution.
When you're ready, take your time, no rush.
Ready, everyone ready? 3, 2, 1, go!
Genocide, so much better when done.
Shame on you! Shame on you! What are you protecting us from?
Now, nothing will change in the short term on the ground. These moves are largely symbolic. But these countries join a growing list of countries that have now recognized the Palestinian state. That number is now up to roughly 150 countries, and we expect it to grow even more. France is expected to join that list this week. It is hosting a conference at the United Nations aimed at shoring up support for a two-state solution. These moves, of course, have left Israel and the U.S. deeply isolated on this issue. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, however, is digging in his heels. He says these recognitions are a prize, a reward for Hamas's October 7th attack that triggered this war. He says there will never be a Palestinian state and is vowing to take unilateral action in response to these moves. He says he will make an announcement on his decision after he visits the United States and consults with President Donald Trump. He's expected at the White House later this month.
A protest in downtown Lima, Peru's capital, ended Saturday with clashes between demonstrators and police, tear gas and people running through the streets. According to Associated Press, hundreds of young people, mobilized by a self-proclaimed group called Generation Z, gathered in a central square and confronted police as they tried to march toward the government palace to press their demands. Riot police waited for the march behind barricades that blocked traffic on nearby streets. The demonstrators had organized on social media in recent days to oppose a proposed pension reform and to call for better wages and labor conditions. The march also drew support from unions, environmentalists and other activist groups. Peru is experiencing political turmoil following the 6-month suspension Friday of Attorney General Delia Espinosa. Espinosa had accused lawmakers, cabinet ministers and even President Dina Boluarte of various alleged crimes.